What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. A very strange leak hit Nintendo over the weekend, and it's one that, really shows one of the reasons Nintendo likes game key cards, at least outside of the fact that they are just cheaper to produce, but we'll go over that here today. Also, Rockstar Games was hit with a major hack, and one that, yes, the team that's hacked them is kind of bragging about it now, but also putting up a ransom and a deadline. Well, Rockstar Games did respond, and we'll see what they had to say about all of that. And we talked about Fortnite and Epic Games, so they laid off a ton of people, and now it seems like they are banking on their partnership with Disney, and you're gonna want to hear the game that they now have planned that's coming up here pretty soon. All that and more. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. Guys, we're every weekday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time, going over the world of gaming news, trying to keep you up to date. So even if you don't get a notification, just know there's probably a video here for you to check out. And we're going to start today with Microsoft and Fable, which should be a big game for them to line up for 2026, along with a bunch of other big games that they have planned. There's a lot happening this year for Microsoft. The only problem is that's also, of course, means that it's getting very crowded, and like we can see, now this was shared by Idle Sloth, but it is Jeff Grubb on Game Mess, his podcast that he has, saying, "I'll say that I've heard that Fable has been pushed internally. That doesn't mean that it's coming out next year. Apparently they're still trying to get it out this year, but they are worried about the launch of GTA 6, and so if it's getting delayed beyond the release of GTA 6, that could push it into December, which might make it a prime candidate to get delayed into 2027. And that's again the problem. It's very crowded because while GTA 6 is obviously something that all these companies are planning around, if you're Microsoft, you also have Call of Duty to plan around, and honestly, wouldn't shock me if that maybe moves up a week. Say like last year we had Call of Duty launch like mid-November. Maybe the first week of November or right at the end of October, potentially, just to make way for GTA 6. And really, if Fable can't get out before then, there's no point, I think, launching it in December. You may as well look towards 2027. That would be an absolute shame because it's already kind of been delayed once before, then pushing it into 2027. But Fable, you got to be careful with, because if it launches and struggles just because it's almost overrun by so much stuff, that would be really bad for the franchise trying to make a comeback. Also, there's word going around right now that Microsoft, who is looking with Asha Sharma to lower the cost of Game Pass, could be maybe thinking about removing Call of Duty. Now, this we can see is transcribed by Pure Xbox. It is from the Xbox 2 podcast and Jez Corden saying if they take Call of Duty out of Game Pass this year, which is a possibility from what I've heard, I think it'll reveal some of the cracks in the strategy with Game Pass possibly. And so right now, Game Pass, if you want Call of Duty right away, it's on day one when it releases, it's $30 per month, but that's just kind of Game Pass outright ultimate for those day one games. And Call of Duty clearly costs a lot of money. There's a good chance that is $1 billion franchise in terms of costs at this point to make the thing. And you put it into Game Pass, that immediately raises the price because of the value there that's lost on those sales. So Microsoft, Ash Sharma has a lot of work to do around Game Pass, trying to figure out how to present it with a lower tier that's still valuable, and then potentially with an even higher tier that has more stuff packed into it. I feel like $30 per month is already kind of difficult to justify, even with something like Call of Duty. You remove that, though, the price of Game Pass absolutely has to come down. I think then bare minimum has to drop to like $20 per month. Oh, and I figured I would follow up on this since we already talked about it last week with Tomodachi Life floating around allegedly. Not necessarily the case then, but is the case now, as yesterday, yeah, it did leak out online. And it's in the usual spots and different websites and stuff. And so you're going to see people, I'm sure, playing it on emulators or on their hacked Switch systems. Now, this is not the whatever they have set up for the Switch 2, or it will detect it and it'll be a different resolution and stuff there. It's not going to use the boost mode, but still, you will have the game out there that people are playing, and I guess spoiling things. Again, this still feels like a choose your own adventure sort of game that's going to be very dependent on your choices and how you set everything up, but just wanted to put that out there. Yes, Tomodachi Life has officially leaked, and this is, I guess, one of the last times Nintendo will have to deal with this outside of Rhythm Heaven, at least for a big full, although Rhythm Heaven, again, I was surprised at the feedback for that in terms of the reaction. So either way, we have this and then Rhythm Heaven as Switch 1 games, and then maybe clear sailing for Nintendo, at least for now, with Switch 2 releases that aren't leaking out like this. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with a very strange leak that appeared online for the Switch 2, and it's essentially a canceled game, or at least what a lot of us believe to be a canceled game for the Switch 2 that got out there in the wild as a physical cartridge, half a physical cartridge. It's a game key card. And again, this kind of plays into one benefit Nintendo has from their point of view with these game key cartridges. So what's going on? Well, Borderlands 4, which a couple of months ago we found out was just like shelved indefinitely. And not shocking when we did see footage of it being played at some of the different trade shows and conventions. And it wasn't going over great in some aspects. I mean, the frame rate was definitely dropping pretty hard at times and was kind of comparable to what we saw with Elden Ring. And we know Elden Ring got delayed. Still waiting for that to necessarily get the official announcement and release date and stuff. We've seen it for $80. That's been a whole talking point. But Borderlands 4 had a similar outing, and it seemed like, at least for now, 2K decided, you know what, Gearbox, hey, we're just going to go ahead and put this to the side, not even necessarily think about it or talk about it anymore, and maybe someday they'll be able to get it out there. Otherwise, it'll never come out, and it's just completely canceled. Well, take a look. This is over on Vinted, and it was noticed actually days ago, and people figured, oh, well, that's probably fake. I mean, it's Borderlands 4. It's the case, it's sealed. Somebody maybe printed up the cover art, did a full resealing job on a Switch 2 case they had, and they're trying to pass it off to make like $100 or something. It's something we've seen over and over again with different scams online. Well, someone decided to buy this listing. Yeah, and so the other day, it actually showed up with images, and get this, there's a cartridge in there. I mean, there's full marketing even to the side of it with looks like a code there for some extra things. And apparently that was already redeemed. So it's not really be able to tell what that would necessarily do for the game. But the person also went ahead and popped it into their Switch 2 system just to see if it would pull any game or data or anything, and it did not. They have a video that they put up on X, and it just shows that there's an error code after it starts checking the internet, looking for the files that a game key card would typically pull. And as I mentioned, this is one of the benefits that Nintendo has with the game key card, is they do indeed control the game technically. So if in the past, let's say there would have to be a game on that cartridge and it leaked out like this, we'd probably be right now seeing an early build of Borderlands 4 on the Switch 2 that was probably all busted and like the frame rate was bad, and they were going to try to fix it through a day one patch even, but not the case here with the game key card. But it does make me think, how close were they to shipping this if they really did have cartridges, cases, cover art, even like inserts with the codes on it, and it was sealed up like this? So that shows, at least in my mind, that it got to maybe the distributor level. Did this end up getting out from like a high-end wholesale area or like what? So it's a very odd thing to see just kind of show up online like this, and somebody decided to take a chance on it. And here we are now, at least with one Borderlands 4 Switch 2 cartridge floating around out there in the wild that does absolutely nothing. I guess it also shows us what happens with a game key card if there's nothing on the other side, because that has been a question for quite some time for people wondering what happens in 30 years or something. If the servers are down or they're deciding not to host any of the files any longer because it's an old game and they don't have to, you get the error code, and yes, it really is just a tiny little plastic shell that has no value. Next up, let's talk about another gaming event that seems to be happening this week. And I say another one because last week there was word going around that there was an unconfirmed state of play being rumored. Well, now it seems like maybe this has shifted over to an Xbox event. Now, this was happening, you can see, and it was a clip posted over on social media with X, where Jez Gordon was teasing that Xbox will have a small show next week. Tom Warren followed this up in a response saying, this is the ID at Xbox, so that would be their like independent games and stuff. And then we have Nate coming in here, who says the Microsoft show will broadcast on April 16th and is the venue of choice for the Metro 2039 reveal. I don't know the branding of the show. Before anyone asks, no, I have not been able to confirm the previously rumored state of play date information yet. Again, Nate did say that was unconfirmed at the time, and it could be wires getting crossed or something over this ID at Xbox event. But nonetheless, seems like the event would indeed be a place for third parties to show up. Metro 2039, I'm sure there are a lot of Metro fans out there who are very excited to hear that, yes, there is a new Metro game to look forward to, and you'll be seeing it here pretty soon. But then the other thing was Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced, and then you start to go, okay, Metro, Assassin's Creed doesn't really necessarily seem like a small, like, oh, indies style show when you have those kinds of games. And that is, of course, if there's just one event. I guess there could be two events on April 16th, one from Sony and one from Microsoft. It's happened in the past, but usually that would have been during the E3 time from way, way back in the day, where there would just be events stacked on top of each other. These companies don't really need to do that anymore. But still, it sounds good to me if we're just going to have a bunch of different events and games getting announced. And I am looking forward to, sure, seeing what Metro is going to look like. But honestly, seeing this new Black Flag game, for a lot of people, myself included, that was like one of the top tier kind of Assassin's Creed experiences. And I just want to see what Ubisoft does with it in a remake or reimagining of it. That's where it gets kind of dicey. We'll see. But at least for now, we're looking forward to, I would say at this point, with some of the sources chiming in, an Xbox event of some kind on April 16th. But maybe a state of play as well, so stay tuned. Next up, let's talk about Rockstar Games getting hacked. And there's still a lot of questions and speculation around how much information this group was able to get from Rockstar Games, but like we can see, this was broken over on the cyber security guru, who says shiny hunters went through why not? Pokemon themed, I guess, group. Anyway, that's a cloud monitoring tool that Rockstar uses, and from there, they pulled authentication tokens that let them walk into Rockstar's Snowflake environment as if they were a legitimate internal service. They've set a ransom deadline of April 14th. Pay or they release the data. Shiny hunters, they have several past victims that are pointed out here by Cybersecurity Guru, including Microsoft, Wattpad, Cisco, AT&T, and Ticketmaster. All right, so this isn't their first rodeo. They've done this many times, and we've talked about a lot of different groups that have hit some of these big game companies and demanded some sort of ransom, typically in the millions of dollars in a form of cryptocurrency that can be sent to them through an address, and try to keep it all anonymous. And then we've also seen, of course, the company go, no, we're not going to pay you. And I think it's almost, I will say, I think it's kind of that unspoken rule of, look, no matter what they've stolen, you can't pay it, because all that's going to do is then encourage more of these kinds of attacks, right, for ransom, because it works. So I will say Rockstar Games kind of in a situation of where they just go, no, we're not going to pay you. And then you have Shiny Hunter, the group, who is going to really ham it up, I assume, as to what they were able to get so they can put pressure on Rockstar Games. Like if it's a bunch of customer data, I'm sure there are many customers who go, you should pay them so it doesn't leak all of my information online. Or even if you're an employee within Rockstar Games, you're probably going, wait, that has like all of our employee stuff is there, and that they're just going to leak that. Well, what we've seen in the past, when that was the case, the company, rather than pay the group that's doing this ransom, they would actually pay for like online protection, for identity theft and stuff for employees and even customers. And yeah, that probably is the way to go. Again, it's unfortunate that this happens because it puts you in that situation that's kind of no-win. You can't pay the group who's taken this information because it'll encourage more. And then you kind of have to either way pay out to then protect against what they're going to leak at that time. So they are saying April 14th, they will just drop all this information. What do they have? That's the better question, because people are thinking, oh, GTA 6, obviously. Like they have like the source files, code, whatever for it. That doesn't necessarily seem to be the case, because I will say, Rockstar Games, if that did happen, they're certainly playing it cool right now. In fact, there's a response from a spokesperson there. This was to Kotaku, saying, we can confirm that a limited amount of non-material company information was accessed in connection with a third-party data breach. This incident has no impact on our organization or our players. So, of course, it's difficult to say what they have then, even with a response like that. Very general, but mostly saying, hey, they don't have credit card information or customer data. I kind of feel like they would have to say something pretty quickly of, hey, you might want to change your password at least, because they got that. No, here, maybe marketing material, maybe canceled games or just proof of concepts or storyboarding, something like that, maybe. It doesn't seem like they have Grand Theft Auto 6, and it also doesn't seem like this would necessarily affect the current trajectory and timeline for GTA 6. That was another concern. Of course, we're getting close to GTA 6 releasing. This happens, and now they're going to have to delay the game because of all this going on. Also doesn't seem like that's happening. So I guess at least good news in that regard. But also, April 14th, we'll probably see this stuff get dumped online, and then we can figure out what exactly they were able to take from Rockstar Games in this breach. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Epic Games, as the last time they were in the news was them just laying off a ton of people, right? And that was a whole thing about Fortnite, and is it faltering a bit right now? Or is it just, hey, Epic Games, Tim Sweeney, they're making some bad financial decisions for the company, like fighting it out with Apple for years and years and losing, as they say, like $1 billion+ because they couldn't have Fortnite on Apple devices. Which, yeah, big market there and a lot of money that you could have made to pay the employees that you then laid off. But nonetheless, they do have partnerships with Disney, and well, thanks to Bloomberg, we now have an idea as to what I guess their next release is, and let's take a look. This is part of the report here, saying the company is pinning a resurgence on games it's been developing with Walt Disney, which agreed to invest $1.5 billion in Epic 2 years ago. Epic is on track to launch the first game in its new Disney partnership in November. According to 4 current former employees, it will be a shooting game along the lines of Embark Studios' hit Arc Raiders, but with Disney characters battling enemies until they can reach an extraction point. According to the People, so far internal reviewers have expressed concerns that the game's mechanics are not very original, but some of the employees are optimistic that Epic will get it right by the launch date. And also, I assume this is something that will be part of Fortnite. Like, they have Fortnite, but then they have games within Fortnite, and that's what I figure is happening here. So they are making a Disney-themed extraction shooter that apparently doesn't feel very original with the mechanics, so it's gonna be, I don't know, I guess like a reskinned Arc Raiders style game, but the idea of Disney characters, I mean, I guess they'll have special abilities. I don't think they'll give them just guns, necessarily. Maybe they will. I don't know, maybe they just have Mickey and Goofy running around with AK-47s. I don't know. But at least here, to me, it would make more sense to have each one sort of have like their own little abilities that would either be melee based or shooting, and then I guess you gain loot and then you leave with it, craft stuff, and then jump back in. I guess. The whole thing about these games going into Fortnite is also weird to me because, okay, you have to get the Fortnite launcher and then you get this game. It's like, just like release the game separately. I need to fire up Fortnite that much, apparently. But that's Epic's thing. They want to make Fortnite a platform as opposed to just its own game. It really has grown to that position that they are so reliant on them that if it does falter, Fortnite seems to do a lot of damage to the company itself. But this seems slated for, I guess, November. So I don't know. We'll see how they handle an extraction shooter with Disney characters later this fall. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, if you were put in charge of Xbox, turn things around, would you go back to making games exclusive to the console? 22% say no, 78% say yes. And I will say it's a lot easier for any of us to click yes and submit, as opposed to if you were really put in that position and they went, hey, here's how much money we're making right now. We want to make more money and we want to bring the Xbox brand up to a certain level versus where it is now. It's hard to go, okay, we're going to then shrink our user base, how many people we can sell this thing to, by making it exclusive, and we're gonna endure the lower sales numbers for X amount of years to build our install size back up. It's certainly risky, and I'm sure a difficult thing to necessarily sell to Satya Nadella and some of the other higher-ups there, because they don't really get the exclusive games for consoles, even PC. I mean, it's Windows, so you could technically keep it exclusive to Windows, not put it on Steam. That's the thing. It's very difficult right now for Microsoft to navigate all of this, and then doing this means you would also mostly just keep it to Game Pass, and as we're seeing with Call of Duty, seems like that's almost too big for the service that's sitting at $30 per month. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Tube, who says, the answer to what Nintendo could do with achievements has been staring them in the face for 20 years. Just make it so you earn decorations for an Animal Crossing style room that your Mii hangs out in. Then, when you're checking your friend's achievement list, it actually shows your Mii visiting theirs and looking at their trophies. That's certainly a thing that I obviously Sony tried to play around with this with PlayStation Stars, but being able to show off your trophies in a more prominent fashion that is not necessarily just, okay, profile, achievements, game or trophy, game, and then you scroll down and see them. It should be something that you can celebrate more, and that's one of the reasons that I would like to see Nintendo attempt something with achievements or trophies that are system level, not just like, oh, you have to go into the game and then there's a menu and you can see all your achievements. Some games have it, but the idea of tying it to an account that now we know with Nintendo will follow you for each generation and each system now going forward, I think it'd be a lot of fun to have that. And as you mentioned, kind of almost a PlayStation Home kind of setup, but with Nintendo and like your Mii or for an Animal Crossing room and setting up some really cool stuff. I think that'd be a lot of fun. But it really comes down to Nintendo wanting to participate in that achievements and trophy space. Also, think about some of the cross-media stuff they could do. Like, so if you bought tickets to the Mario Galaxy movie, maybe you get a code on your ticket, or even digital, you get it emailed to you. And if you punch that into your Switch 2 for your account or your Switch, you get something, a Yoshi egg maybe, to put up on a shelf in your room. Like, these are things that Nintendo, I think, should be exploring more and more to drive, yes, just user interest and engagement, but also be able to tie together all these different initiatives that they're setting out on right now. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed last week's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you wanted to see the smaller Switch 2 cartridges that seem to be going around right now. I decided to pick one up. That was a $30 Switch 2 game all in the cartridge, cut it open and see what was inside for comparisons, and I'll leave that in the video right below. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.